review.
Hello folks, I'm Mark Reilly, and once again I'm joined by Benjamin Geary, and this is the breakdown where I look back at a really successful series in the Automation series for Ireland, as they made it 3 wins from 3 against Argentina this past weekend. And we will also look ahead to the return of domestic rugby with Munster and Larkham's departure. So Ben, quickly, Argentina game, what's your first thoughts? Really impressed? Argentina poor? What do you think?
Yeah, it's probably the second one. Like Ireland were hitting the ground running after.
By the way, ever the optimist.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I don't know. I think a lot of people will be on my side with that one. Like,
yeah, I would actually agree.
It was a bit like parts of it were a bit remarkable, to be honest. Like, of course, Ireland were hitting the ground running after a win against the All Blacks. They were over the moon. I was a little surprised to see the team that, well, I wasn't, but the team that Andy Farrell selected was very strong. You know, we could have beaten them with a much
I was surprised
kind of team.
Yeah,
a little bit, yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of positives from it. Argentina were probably made it very easy to beat them. They played in a way that was easy beat, like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even when you look at Carreras' fumble, like mere meters off
their hands. Played into
their hands. Like, the amount of silly penalties they gave away that were completely avoidable. Like, there was a lot of fundamentals that were already out the window before the game kicked off.
Not to interrupt you, but that's kind of what surprised me the most, is how well disciplined they were.
They were absolutely
shocking, and they lost their heads completely in the last. I know they were getting, they did receive, they were in the bad end of a hiding, but like, yeah, completely just, they threw in the towel. And it was actually kind of toys out the pram situation from Argentina for the last like 20-25 minutes. It was a bit ridiculous. But yeah, go on, sorry.
No, listen, the same again. Like, I'm only agreeing with you. It was a little bit upsetting. I'm kind of similar. I'm in similar kind of frame of mind as I was after the Japan game, because I was really looking forward to seeing good Japanese rugby, and I was looking forward to seeing Argentinian rugby, because I know how good they can be.
Which they showed in the first 3 minutes. And then
exactly. Yeah, they were the first team to score.
Yeah.
But, you know, kind of caught Ireland napping a little bit. Ireland were still kind of, even though the game had kicked off, they were kind of waiting for it to start almost. And
sure, when the ball kicked off, Ireland players looking at highlights of the New Zealand game. Like,
exactly, yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah. It's like, you know, it doesn't tell you a lot from kind of a broader within the context of the World Cup and stuff, because like, they must have been exhausted. I think whatever about last week when we beat the All Blacks, but I think, 2 weeks ago at this stage, but thinking about last weekend, like, they must have been exhausted, like living out of suitcases for the past however many months, 2 months plus maybe. It must be really difficult, particularly Argentina. Like, they probably have, and I'm speculating here now, but they probably have the biggest toll to pay in regards to traveling, when you take into account the likes of, particularly just the stress of traveling in the first place, but also even things like jet lag and time differences and stuff like that, and trying to maintain a training regimen to peak physically come game day must be incredibly difficult from their point of view. But but then again, they also didn't control the controllables. So listen, it was what it was.
That's the thing. And I think that's the thing about the series. I mean, obviously New Zealand, we literally went on 40 minutes about it the last day. It was unbelievable performance. But I kind of wish that we faced tougher or stiffer competition outside of New Zealand. So say instead of Japan, that we took on maybe South Africa or something. I'd love to see that, but it is what it is. And we played what was in front of us, and we played well. So
exactly.
3 from 3, can't complain. But yeah, I'd actually that a little pop-up question. Who for you? Actually, do you know what? We'll go with one. We'll just go with one player, because we'll zone in on this. So one player throughout the whole series for you, for Ireland, who just stood out.
The one player who stood out was probably Caelan Doris, to be honest. I was trying to think of another name in case of someone peeped him, but no, I think particularly in what is a very competitive back row, like Josh van der Fleer is playing out of his skin. Peter O'Mahony, for some reason, seems to come alive when he's playing for Ireland.
He's made me eat every single one of my words, because on the first episode of this, I said the curtain is kind of closing on Peter O'Mahony. Well, I'll tell you what, he's gotten two hands and he's torn those curtains down, because he's been absolutely unbelievable.
I wonder if he heard you say that. I wonder if he watched it.
Of course he did.
Probably did, yeah.
I'm the reason for the 3 out of 3. But I'd agree with Caelan Doris. Like, a lot of people put their hands up. Actually, several amount of players put their hands up. Tadhg Furlong, to name a few. But
of course,
I think Caelan Doris just came into his own and just really, really announced himself on the international stage. And I think he's here for the long run.
Yeah. Because even when you think of the likes of, like, obviously Gavin Coombs was someone I really wanted to see play against a top level opposition. You know, like, obviously the summer tests they were under slightly different circumstances and context, but I think putting him in the situation of an Autumn Nations game test match would be really telling. And I thought he would thrive. Like, even if Will Connors was fit, I thought he probably would have been in the mix as well. Even the likes of, like, Dan Levy, who probably hasn't played for Ireland in a long time, but he's still an exceptional talent in that position. But I think Caelan Doris now has a firm grip on that.
Yeah.
In one of the jerseys anyway. I think has he played 6, 7 and 8? I think he probably is filled in there close enough then anyway. But one of those jerseys is going to him come the Six Nations.
Oh, I think it's goes without saying. So Caelan Doris, I would actually agree. So 100% agree with that, to be honest. So man of the match for you, I know who it's going to be before I don't actually, it is more of a rhetorical question, really. Carberry got it. Who was your man of the match?
Carberry, and Carberry would have gotten it for me as well. Shocker. Of course, I mean, in a game like that, you can pick anyone. You know, you can pick the guy who gave away all the penalties as well, just as easily as you could pick Carberry. But there was a lot of positives from what is a very high pressure position, because, like, the other 14 positions on the rugby pitch, it's almost like if you can play on the day, great. You know, Andy Farrell will pick you and you'll play great or you'll play badly. And then whatever happens after that happens. But for some reason in Ireland anyway, we have this idea that the number 10 is almost like a vocation. They're joining the priesthood until they just physically can't play anymore.
Absolutely.
Or unless someone comes and overthrows you, which, there's examples of as well. But what I found particularly interesting was when Harry Byrne came on probably in around the 60th minute. It might have been the 51st or the 58th minute or something like that. But Carberry moved to fullback, which very interesting, because I wrote actually one of the first. I kind of called it, about a year ago. Not to be tooting my own horn now, but one of the first opinion pieces I ever wrote was about, since there's so much depth at the out half position at Munster, that Carberry should look to playing fullback more, because he has man of the match awards. He's won Heineken Cups filling in at fullback and things like that with Leinster. So he's already an established fullback at a very high level. And I was just kind of questioning where this kind of vocation to play 10 came from. But I think it was really refreshing to see him kind of branch out and go back and, take care of the backfield. And he took to like a duck to water. It was just like,
there was no, it was a seamless transition, really. There
exactly.
Was
it was completely seamless. Even he caught a few high balls, like he covered the backfield very well. Like Argentina did attempt to kind of stab a few grubbers and, put up a few high balls, but Carberry was there. He could just read it. It was almost like he had more time. But I really like that bit of diversity.
The flaw for me for the Argentinians was the kicking game was, I just didn't see the thought process behind it. Like, it was just a really poor game of tennis for about 5 minutes in the second half, just pinging and pulling the ball back. And Argentina, at least Ireland were trying to put the ball in behind and get something. I'm pretty sure Argentina were literally like hot potato. They're like, get this out of my hands. That's what it looked like. It was just, I don't know. It was mad. I don't know. I just didn't understand the thinking behind it. But they've been on a poor run. They have been on a poor run.
They've only one win. They beat Italy, but I think they've lost their last. Sorry,
I think that was their first win in 8. Italy.
I think it was, more or less. They beat Italy, and probably their first win in
Yeah.
7 or 8 games or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure what the issue could have been. It must have been a mix of fatigue and I don't know. You could probably go on. You could probably name a few different things, but considering like how good they are, like when you think like Japan didn't knock us out of the last World Cup, but they denied us finishing top of the pool. New Zealand did knock us out of the World Cup, and then 4 years prior to the 2019 World Cup, it was Argentina that knocked us out of that World Cup. So there were all the teams that we kind of had a grudge against from recent years, and we've gotten wins over them. So
banish the demons.
Exactly, yeah. So there's positives there mentally, really.
I have to be slightly positive. One of us has to do it. So
yeah,
it's
not gonna be me.
But yeah. So as I was saying there, you kind of wish there was stiffer competition, but however, it goes back to the old cliche: you can only play who's in front of you, and put up 50+ points against Argentina. Can't complain. Off Japan and the style we did, can't complain. And New Zealand, like the only thing I'm starting to get a bit irritated by is a lot of people are saying Argentina were poor, New Zealand were poor, and all this. And I completely get that thinking, but at the same time, our pressure, our ball handling, our play through the phases is undermining their skill level. We're putting pressure on them, and we're making them look worse than they are. And I think that's just a credit once again to Andy Farrell and the coaching staff.
Exactly. Yeah. I also noticed that like the defense is very similar to how it was under Joe Schmidt, which isn't a surprise considering the defense coach at the time was Andy Farrell. It's a very, and I could be kind of inaccurate, a little bit inaccurate in saying this in case I offend any avid rugby league fans, but it is a very rugby league style defense because Andy Farrell was a decorated rugby league player in his time. But you know, it's because Hugo Keenan is able to cover so much of the backfield, you often see only him dropping back and then the two wingers coming up flat to create almost like this iron curtain in order to, in lack of a better word. And then if you add a factor of incredible line speed and incredible work rate to that shape, that defensive shape, it's incredibly difficult to penetrate. Like New Zealand did it a couple of times by going wide, like Richie Mo'unga was able to send a couple of just kind of chip kicks into the wing, and Will Jordan scored off one. They were very near scoring off it a couple of times. They did target that part of the pitch a lot. But it's just there's weaknesses to every defensive shape, you know. Part of
the risk you take of us playing this expensive style of rugby is, you know, go on when you're on the back foot. There may be more gaps, but ultimately the risk is worth the reward. So so far. And definitely. I think that's what's impressed me most about Farrell is you just like touched on it there. That he was defensive coach under Smith's regime, but it's the offensive style that we're playing, ball handling, offloading. I know we say it every week, but it seems to be getting more cohesive and better every week. So
definitely.
Yeah, I just think
that's something that stuck out to me with Joey Carberry as well, because like an out half's job isn't just to kind of catch and pass; it's also to keep the offense in shape and keep the system in place that's supposed to be in place there. And I think he did that very well. I
don't think you can. I can't disagree with you. And I've said my piece about Carberry. Like I do rate him. I just think Sexton is miles ahead at this moment in time. Of course, but he was exceptional. So I can't argue with you.
Yeah, and I think there was positives. Like I always kind of wondered why Harry Byrne was touted as such a, if that's the right word, as such a great out half or like a successor to Sexton, because I just didn't really see it. But I'm a little more convinced because even though he threw some shocking passes and he kicked some shocking kicks, but he did know the set piece inside out, and he did understand the attacking system that Farrell was trying to implement.
I think,
of course, he made a lot of mistakes, but that's what you want at this stage. You know, you want him to make mistakes and get used to it and figure it out.
Exactly. I don't think it's funny. I think you need a bit of both. So obviously, Carberry was the general on Sunday, but he has that side to him. Like he's like not to the level of Finn Russell, but he is mercurial. He can create stuff. He has the talent to kind of just pop off and create things out of the blue. But then again, you do need that structured side as well, which Harry Burns seems to be the ultimate.
Yeah, seems to get
monkey,
it.
You see a monkey do in a good way. Do you know? As in, like he knows what he's there to do, and he'll do the job for you. But I don't think when you're comparing him to Carberry, I think it's chalk and cheese. Carberry he'll be more innovative and creative. So I think it's important to have the two, and I think it's a good balance to have coming off the bench if you are closing off a game.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say that Jack Carty couldn't do the same job or Ben Healy couldn't do the same job, but you know, I mean, you need to give the guys a chance. I would love to see Ben Healy get a cap, either over the Six Nations, maybe.
That could prove very hard though if Carberry continues the form.
Of course, yeah. And I'm not saying that
hashtag fullback. That's what Ben is saying.
Hashtag fullback. Yeah, I'm still a big believer in it. I still don't think it's off the table. But even you saw the likes of Craig Casey get a good run out against Italy this time last year. I know awarding someone their first cap, particularly a Munster player, but awarding a player their first cap in the Six Nations tournaments is kind of seldom done. But I don't think it's a million miles away either. Farrell can surprise us. You know, he will continue to surprise us. So
you never know. What did you think about the halfbacks?
Interesting question. Yeah, I'm kind of. I was hoping that the conversation
was individually, but that kind of the chemistry, the connection. What did you make of it on Sunday?
I didn't see a lot of chemistry between Conor Murray and Joey Carberry. I just didn't. I don't think it existed. It was either something happened off Conor Murray or something happened off Joey Carberry. They were rarely collaborating on anything. Yeah. I think Conor Murray kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. He was kind of box kicking, like when you I only watched the game once, admittedly. I didn't watch it back a second time, which I usually do, but anytime Argentina got a bit of space or got a bit or threatened the Irish defense, it was usually off a Conor Murray kick. You know, it was almost like it wasn't a part of the plan, and they didn't really know how to chase it or how to follow on from it. And then when Craig Casey came on, oh my God, the difference in the speed of the ball. He only threw. So, sorry, now I'm trying to get my numbers right. So Conor Murray was on the pitch for 50 minutes and Craig Casey was on the pitch for the last half an hour, last 30 minutes. Yeah. And Craig Casey only threw 13 fewer passes than Conor Murray did. And there could be a few different reasons for that. Like, you know, possession might have been
that's crazy though.
A bit different, but he's just quicker. You know, he just gets to the ball and he moves it a lot quicker, which is what you need.
He's more condensed version of Gibson Park.
He is, yeah. He's like a mini version. If anything, he's probably a bit more like boisterous than Gibson Park. You know, he kind of gets in your face a bit more. He kind of reminds me of Faf de Klerk more than and that's a compliment, Craig, if you're listening. But he reminds me of Faf de Klerk more than he does of Gibson Park. But yeah, I think the game became significantly quicker and more entertaining when and it's sad to say because I'm a huge Conor Murray fan and I think that his career is far from over, but I think within the game the Ireland are playing now, it doesn't really suit him.
Exactly. It's not always an indictment on, you know, an individual. It's more like it's a team performance and it's what style of play you're playing and who beds into that well, who can do a certain job. It's the same in any sport.
Yeah.
Any sport across the world, whatever it is, it's systematic. And you need pieces that fit your puzzle, and that's just the way it is. If you have a piece that's too big, too small, it's not going to fit, and it doesn't necessarily mean that piece is useless. It can work in another jigsaw.
Yeah. Another puzzle, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. This one, and that's all it is. It's not really an enjoy. And again, I couldn't agree more. It's just more. It's never, I suppose, a fault. It's his style of play, which was so effective for so long. He was absolutely immense. But it's just, I think he's been so good for so long. It's like Sexton. Sexton is now targeted by every team. Every single team against Ireland hitting Sexton hard, and we're going to let him know we're there.
Yeah.
And it seems to work. So Murray now, I think, has slightly gotten a bit predictable for other teams.
Yeah,
Do you know,
yeah.
like
Little
nearly,
bit.
I would say nearly 40%. I'm not, this is off the top of my head. It's obviously not 40%, but let's just go with 35, 40% of literally of the ball he has at the back of the row. I would say most teams are like, right, he's kicking this.
Probably a kick, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Depending where
So,
he is.
and
Yeah,
that's,
depending what
I
part
just
of the
think,
pitch he is, and yeah,
exactly. I just think Gibson Park brings that speed, unpredictability, and you're like, right, what's
exactly,
going
yeah.
on? Just kind of offload it quick, get the ball out to the back fast. You don't know what's coming, and unpredictability at the moment is kind of one of our strengths.
Yeah. When you look at the best scrum halves in the world at the moment, that's kind of their CV too, or it's the
Yep.
kind of their DNA, maybe is a better term. But like
Yep.
Dupont he literally might as well not have a number on his back because he does everything. He's so
Yep.
unpredictable.
Yep.
Like even Danny Kerr last year playing for Harlequins in the Premiership, like that was a big part of their game too. Himself and Marcus Smith. That was kind of the how would you say, the vibe. I hate using that word within a sporting context, but it was kind of the vibe of how they played rugby. And yeah, it's kind of leaving Conor Murray behind a little bit, which is sad to say. But listen, we'll see how it goes for him in the future. But and I'm not saying that he won't be an asset in the future, but I think the way Farrell wants to play the game is now quite obvious, and I don't know is Murray fitting into that mold exactly. So listen.
I can't disagree with you, even though I love to. I can't.
You love disagreeing with me, Eric, yeah.
You. But like, I'm just looking at it here again. It's just like, it's just mad. I mean, this is the one that stands out to me. So, can you? I'll ask you quick. I'll pick your brain. So, Rucks won 98%. For Ireland in attack is just ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's just it's cutting out errors and it's just doing the basics supremely well.
Yeah,
and that impresses me. I thought we were absolutely brilliant in that department. I want to hear what you have to say about the lineout.
About the Irish lineout. I think after coming out of the Rory Best era, we took the standard of lineouts that he brought for granted a little bit. If that makes any sense. But
of course,
do you know, hooker's a hard position to play, and it's very hard to I have to arrange my thoughts, but it's very hard to deliver a level of consistency at that position at such a fundamental part of the game. And it's going to take a while for the likes of, whether it be Ronan Kelleher, who probably is going to be first choice hooker for Ireland now going forward. But
I would think so.
It's going to take a long time for him and his fellow hookers. I don't know, you can go on about who's Farrell's going to select in the future, but it's going to take him a while to really achieve that, if ever. I think he will. I think Kelleher will, but it's tough to get right because you can coach it as much as possible, but there was a lot of kind of silly mistakes throughout all three games, but we just kind of seem to kind of get away with it. And our opposition lineouts were arguably worse, bar the All Blacks, so we looked great. But yeah, I thought the lineouts, I thought they can be they will be a big asset going forward, considering that Joe Schmidt launched the vast majority of his set pieces off a lineout. So it was almost like that was the foundation of his attack, because a scrum in the middle of the field or what have you, there's not much you can do with it. But lineout is really, because you have the full width of the pitch then to work with. But yeah, it's interesting. Do you know what? I don't know, is there much to tell from just those three games? I still think it's really quite figured out yet, but
it's not the finished article by any means. But I do think there has been improvements. So I was saying I was saying that in the last, I think it was the last segment we had. I just think Paul O'Connell is doing a good job.
Definitely.
But I just think what I'm, not to kind of go off the topic, but what kind of excites me about this Ireland team now is more, to me anyway, for the last, so let's say a year ago, I think everyone was hung up on Sexton, Healy, all these aging players, and we're like, where are we going to get the next generation, who were the next people up and coming, are
Next
kind of
batch,
everyone was panicking. You know, we're like, oh
Yeah.
no, we're going into a dark abyss of Irish rugby.
a little bit,
But-
yeah.
And I just think Farrell has quickly negated that thought process and turned it around, because like even Sheehan, who came on,
Yes,
I thought he was brilliant. And like now I think we can see there's more than a plan A. There's more than just a starting team. There's players coming up through the ranks, and you can see what Ireland are trying to do. And those players, by the time they are in that first starting 15, they will be playing Farrell's rugby and executing it to near perfection, I would imagine.
Yeah,
and that's what excites me.
I think so. Yeah, that's the goal anyway. I think where the Ireland forwards are at the moment, like it's probably the closest to being the most complete forward pack in the world at the moment, because every player is an attacking threat. Like even when when Sheehan came on, I believe he scored a try against Argentina towards the end. I think he scored the last try of the game. Second last probably.
He had one chopped off and then got his little
yes,
his moment.
Yes, yeah. But like even the carries he was making blew me away. Like for a hooker to be really dominant in that many collisions, and I know he's young and he's strong and whatnot, but like very different to Rory Best. You kind of wonder how Rory Best was making the team ahead of the World Cup, looking at how good Sheehan is now and how good Kelleher is as well. Like Kelleher is a huge ball in hand threat. It's quite remarkable. You can you just wonder, is there avenues being uncovered now by Farrell that Joe Schmidt just didn't want to go? Like Joe Schmidt never talked about offloads, he was so risk-free rugby. It was almost it was almost a disadvantage. But,
I just wonder. Like, again, it goes back to my unbelievable analogy that I made 10 minutes ago. That was honestly, I don't even know how I come up with this stuff. I'm just on fire.
Genius.
But like, it really is. But like, again, it comes down to pieces. So we're clearly developing, and we're clearly this new style of play. We're evolving, for a better word. And I think, like we were talking about Murray, Rory Best, all these players were brilliant at their time. They did a job, and they were absolutely brilliant under Schmidt. But it's a different time. It's a new era, to quote Conor McGregor. It's different, and I just think we're looking different. Like, I mean, we're no longer the robust Ireland that are just kind of, they're going to be like, it was just too often in my opinion, we were just playing a war of attrition. And it was just too just phase after phase, pick and go. It was actually it was very Munster-esque. And I'm a Munster fan, right? As are you. And I love Munster. I think we're playing Leinster ball now, and I'm gonna get killed for this.
You're gonna get slaughtered,
am I wrong? Please.
But no, you're
I think we're playing rugby the way it should be played. Now, granted, you do what is necessary to win a game. However, if you can win a game and do it in an entertaining style where you're playing expansive rugby and you're developing young players and teaching them to play this expansive game, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah. And like, I think you're right with the Leinster ball as well, because like not only is the Ireland team very Leinster heavy at the moment, but like I watched a few of Leinster's early URC games. Admittedly, I made myself sit through them, but like it was almost as if that they would rather die than let that ball get in a breakdown, than have a tackle. It was almost as if keep the ball alive at all costs. Now I wouldn't use that analogy with Ireland per se, but it's much closer to Leinster than Ireland.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
They're playing fourth down rugby. Like basically the NFL, fourth down, we're not punting this, we're going for it. Let's keep the ball alive. Or else we're gone. That's what they do.
Aaron Rodgers, Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely. And it's interesting. Like, I mean, even when you look at Fiji, I don't know if you saw the Fiji-Wales game, which was 2 weeks ago. It was just remarkable. I didn't watch all of it now. I only saw it in drips and drabs, but I believe was it the fullback, he caught the ball, Fiji fullback now, caught a high ball in his 22, called a mark, and then tapped and went because there was the space there. and I think he kicked it into touch after that, but or he grubbered it into touch then to get further up the field. But like in many coaching setups, and like I've played rugby for a long time, but like if I was to do that, I would get slaughtered. That was just off the table immediately. But it's just great to see, like, you know, different teams and at all levels just really pushing the boundaries and stuff. And I know Fiji have always done it, but and Fiji will probably be the only team to do that. But yeah, you know, it's great. And if anything, I think it's probably making the game a bit safer. The fact that players are running at space rather than each other is a big.
I kind of agree with you to an extent, but when I was watching the hits of Ireland, New Zealand, I was like, nah.
Yeah,
this game is no more safe.
Yeah, that's a bad example too.
No. Across the board, I do agree with you. But like, it's just, I think it's again, stupid. I have these weird ideologies and thoughts in my head, but soccer as a professional sport around way longer than rugby, and that's evolving all the time. And the evolution of, like, you know, like Barcelona in 2000, when they started 2008, really 2007, 2008, under Pep, and that, you know, the tiki-taka, the Spain Euro 2008 squad starting that as well, and that was the beginning of a new dawn for football. And I think that's what's happening in rugby now. I think rugby is evolving quite at a rapid pace, considering it was only professional, you know, not too long ago.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's what's happening. I think it's evolving, and it's exciting to watch it because I think the game is becoming a lot more intriguing.
Definitely. And I've heard stuff like that as well, that apparently Pep and the England coach Eddie Jones are friendly, and Pep and apparently Pep is this is credit to Tifo Football now. I can't be claiming this is my own info, but Pep has admired rugby in many ways because it's a space-orientated game, much like football. And, you know, he's just drawn those parallels and whatnot. And I mean, I don't know what that means to the broader picture now, but it's a funny little kind of similarity between two heads and two different games, you know? Speaking of coaches.
Yeah.
Sorry now to be chopping it down, but we'd be fools now if we didn't mention the Stephen Larkham news.
Yes. Indeed, I was actually just about to pop onto it. Like, bit of a blow,
big blow. I think. Yeah,
I think timing wise.
Yeah, it's not.
What's your first thought? Like, screwed? Is that?
No, I wouldn't say screwed. I wouldn't say screwed. Like, he was a big addition, considering you could just see his kind of imprint on the team over the past, since 2019, since he arrived. I'm sure it is a massive strain on both him and his family. I think he's young kids and stuff, or youngish kids, but for them to move over to Limerick from Australia, from sunny Australia, which they're going back to, he's now the head coach of the Brumbies. You just kind of wonder, like, maybe he wasn't happy in Limerick, maybe he didn't settle, which is the case with a lot of coaches. A lot of great coaches just don't find their feet in certain places, and that happens. But maybe he just didn't like Limerick, really. It's kind of my
aspects to it. Exactly. There's loads of moving parts. I mean, everyone looks at things, like face value and surface level, and think Munster are one of the biggest teams in the world, or we like to think so. Well, they still are, reputation. And I think a lot of people are like, why would you kind of leave that when you're building towards something? But as you said, there's life moves on around it, and there's a lot of aspects to look at. And again, I don't know the full extent as to why he's going back, but I mean, I don't know. Like, what do we do in your like, who is your first? Where any names? Like, where?
I think
bugging.
Like, I don't know. Considering that his role within Munster was quite broad. It was like, I think it was just assistant coach. Was he just number 2 to Van Gran? But like, it's interesting because, like, the talent to play, or the talent level of players in Munster is probably better than the Brumbies, and that's not me not being mean to our Australian friends, but like the Brumbies aren't the most dominant team in Australia. They're probably close, but they're not quite it, you know. Like Melbourne Rebels have always been big, the Waratahs have always been big, and the Queensland Reds as well. Like they're kind of the big dogs, and then the Brumbies then are just there to kind of, you know, cause upsets and play and entertain, you know. And they're a great club. I love watching the Brumbies, but yeah, like in regards to what Munster do now, I don't know. It's tricky. I think it's a bit out of the question to try and not lure, but like to try and give a better offer to whether it be the likes of Felix Jones and stuff. Because I mean, like Felix Jones, as you know, was with Munster for years and left with Razzie to go win a World Cup there a couple of years ago.
Some team, very
I can't
high,
remember.
Highest team as well.
Yeah, and it's going very well. So I don't know, is it possible for them to maybe convince him to come back? I think that's kind of a bit ridiculous, really. I think Noel McNamara is probably, I believe in getting his, Noel McNamara is probably the front runner. He was involved at, I think it was in the Munster Academy at one stage, but I think he's involved at Connacht as well. But he's currently with the South Sea Sharks, South African side, but they're playing in the URC.
We know well.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we'll see how Munster spring back with it. It's not a great time, like literally just before European Champions Cup. Not a great time for one of the brains of the operation to announce that he's hitching up his roots and leaving. But yeah, listen, I think Van Graan has had a very difficult job since the start of the season. Considering that this South Africa trip was kind of sprung on him originally, like they had flights booked. I think was to Cardiff. I think they thought they were playing just across the pond, and instead they were going down to South Africa for 2 weeks.
Well, I did not hear about that. No, Phil
us in. Yeah, I think it was it a kind of a late change in the schedule. I think they had booked. I read this article ages ago now, so I could be wrong, but they had booked tickets for the team to fly to Cardiff to play. Was it the Cardiff Blues or whoever was supposed to be on the ticket? But that was since changed to South Africa for those 2 weeks, which is incredibly difficult to manage. Pool of players going down, especially after autumn internationals, to bring those guys down to South Africa, play 2 games, bring them back up, and then dive straight into an away Champions Cup game in Coventry against Wasps. That must be an absolute head wreck for a head coach. Like for not even RG Sneeman going straight back into rehab for his knee. Like a lot of things have gone wrong for Johan van Graan, and now his number 2 is saying, I'm going head coaching the Brumbies now. So it must be really difficult for him to just get his ducks in a row at the moment. But listen, we'll see now this Saturday when Munster take on the Vodacom Bulls as at Versfield. I think is at 3,000 feet above sea level.
I'm actually very, very, very excited for this game.
Really?
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. Munster in South Africa now for a domestic game. It's not a friendly. It's just purely European Rugby Championship, and it's going to be strange, I think, but it's going to be interesting. And actually, to touch on that, so we had this. We had a bit of a thread or a conversation on Twitter. Was it last Friday, I think, before the team announcement for Ireland? And we both were thinking Zebo starting 15. So what's the situation there? He's straight back into the squad, I assume.
Yeah.
Himself ready to go.
Yeah, himself, Gavin Coombs. I think were they the only 2 from the Ireland squad released. So I don't know what the story was now. I don't know, was there any information released on it? But instead of staying with the Ireland camp ahead of the Argentina game, they went and travelled with Munster. I think it's interesting. And I was actually looking at the squad today. Like, there's no Mike Haley. So Mike Haley hasn't gone with Munster for the South Africa tour. So Matt Gallagher has, who's another fullback. He's been playing a lot of fullback recently, actually. Mike Haley might still be recovering from injury. I don't think so. But he could be. I could be wrong. But yeah, so your two fullbacks, I believe, are Matt Gallagher and Simon Zebo. Jack Crowley has been playing a good bit of fullback with Cork Khan in the AIL. So you could see him at fullback. I don't think he's played fullback for Munster yet. I don't believe so. But we can see it. I'd say there'll be a bit of experimenting. Some guys are kind of trying to prove themselves over the next 2 weeks.
That's the beauty of it, though. Like, it's a big opportunity for Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, for Matt Gallagher. Yeah, and he's played a good bit recently. He's been playing well.
Yeah. Away at South Africa, this is a test.
Yeah.
So exactly, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on. And like, he was always touted to be quite a talent. I mean, remember Saracens? He was like, a lot of people
good,
raving about him. Yeah, so I think, it could be hopefully a coming out party for him. So
hopefully so.
We'll see.
Like, I think he played a little bit of centre with Saracens. And if I'm not wrong, this is a bit of a guess now, but I believe that the only reason his contract with Saracens wasn't renewed was because that they were going down to the championship and they had to, cut spending. Yeah, I won't get into all that now, but they were kind of forcefully relegated due to overpaying a lot of players. So I think that was the only reason he was cut loose. But he'd still be playing Premiership rugby for probably one of the best teams in the Northern Hemisphere, best club teams in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're lucky to have him. And
nice,
you might as well play him the way he wants to play. Maybe we should take a leaf out of his book. But
okay. So I've hit the 40-minute mark. So I just want to ask you quickly before I ask you one little question beforehand. But your prediction for Munster and the Bulls?
That's a tough question. Playing at altitude, away.
Yeah, it's I think this game's an unknown quantity, to be honest. I think it's this could be it's a hard one to call. Yeah.
I think Munster are much hungrier than the Bulls are at the moment. I don't know. God, that could be wrong as well. I don't know, because it's their backyard too. So I think I get the sense that there's a lot to play for over the next couple of weeks. So I think Munster are really taking the opportunity and running with it. I'm going to say Munster by 10.
Okay.
I think Munster by 10. I hope it's going to be more, but I'm gonna play my cards close to my chest now and just say Munster by 10. But it won't be a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think so. That's why I'm going by 3.
3, yeah. Oh, and that narrow. Last minute penalty from Ben Healy, maybe.
I think it's going to be a brute. I think it's going to be a brute of a game. I think so too, I think the Bulls are going to throw the kitchen sink at them physically. So
I think so too. It's hard to prepare to play at that altitude. I think it's 3,000 meters? That could be ridiculous now, but I think that's the number sticking out in my head.
Yeah.
Which is so difficult. Oh, altitude is just it's one of the most difficult things to overcome, and it's something that isn't present in a lot of other sports. Maybe golf, I don't know. But
how do you prepare for that? Like, it's going to be interesting. It will be very, very interesting. Okay. So you're Munster by 10. I'm Munster by 3, and that wraps up the prediction for Munster and the Bulls, which is, by the way, folks, if you don't know, what you should know if you are watching this show, but we'll do you a favor, we'll help you out. It's 5:45 this Saturday, so hopefully they can get it done. My last, I suppose, quick question to you before we finish off would be it's a 2-part question, all right? So one, because it just popped into my head there, and I was like, I'm kind of intrigued to see your opinion on this. Do you think France beating New Zealand takes some shine away from our victory over the All Blacks?
No, I don't think so. I think it is just another example of how good France are. Like, this is a long time coming, really. But no, I don't think it does. I think, like, the conversation, and I've been kind of paying attention to New Zealand rugby media a little bit recently, and there seems to be a big emphasis on fatigue, that, France defeated an exhausted New Zealand side. However tired they were when they played us, they must have been, it must be a new chapter in regards to fatigue now. So no, I don't think it takes away from it. But I do think it does show how good France are. Like when you look back at that Roman Intermac pass, like
I was waiting for you to.
Yeah, I've had it on repeat. I've tried to find every single angle of it I can, because like to do that against one of the best teams in the world, to run it from your own dead ball line, first of all, is risky with Jordy Bart chasing after you, but to just leave the ball after him, put it where it needs to be, to see the switch, to see the game the way he saw it, is just you can't teach it.
It was absolutely stunning. There was nothing questionable about the French performance, barred the kits.
The kits?
Everything else is perfect. Oh, their kit is absolutely awful, but that's another that's another story.
Yeah.
But I thought they were frightening. So therefore, that's why I asked you that first. This is my second question to you. It is way too early, but I love early predictions, because you can either hit the nail on the head, and then in a few months, be like, I called that. That was me. Yeah. I'm a genius. Or
so give me the chance.
Or
I could just be,
which I'm hoping for. Will you be wrong? But anyways, Six Nations, your early standout candidate. Who's the team to beat for you?
Oh, the team to beat is definitely France.
I think it's England.
Oh yeah.
France have the flair. England can just get it done.
England can get it done, yeah. England can grind out a win. I'm seeing a lot of good things from Scotland as well at the moment.
1 second. I think I lost connection there. What?
Sorry. I think I'm seeing a lot of good stuff from Scotland, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. When you think how good they were, I know they didn't beat the Springboks, but I think they just seem to be getting... sorry?
I think they've improved, but I think they're still a long way off, to be honest.
I don't know. Like, I don't think they're gonna just be like Wales last year and just completely come out of the blocks and shock everyone and take it home. But I do think that it's going to become significantly more difficult to beat them as time goes on. Mm-hmm. I do think Wales are going to keep the standard. I know. Excuse me. I know that the kind of Autumn Nations was a bit wishy-washy for them, because the first game against New Zealand,
they were depleted as well.
Yeah, and there was guys still playing Premiership and stuff in the biggest game. Like, you had that he wasn't a streaker, but he was a pitch invader. Run on against South Africa, like we were talking about Van Gran earlier. Like, everything kind of went wrong for them.
Adam and Jones,
they beat Fiji.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think Wales will kind of tighten the screws ahead of the Six Nations. But the team to beat, to go back to your question, I think it's France, to be honest. Considering that they were without Bryce Doolan against New Zealand, they were without who else is there? Olivon, their captain. They were without, who else is there? Vakatawa wasn't there. Do you know? So, and I believe all those guys are going to be back now for the Six Nations. But and again, another couple of months to kind of get things sorted and play a bit more clinically is. Yeah, I think they can get the better of England too, which is another prediction for you. But
I love the way this is recorded, because you can't hide now.
So. Yeah, I can't hide. Yeah, it's out there in the internet, the interweb.
Okay, interesting. So you're edging towards France, and I'm edging towards England. Okay, right. There are way too early predictions from us here at Sport Limerick on the Breakdown. So that wraps up this week. Thank you again to anyone watching. It's a pleasure to do this, and we will be back next week again. Don't forget the Munster match on Saturday, 27 November at 5:45. We will have live updates on our Twitter page at Sport Limerick. And until then, folks, it's been the Breakdown. I've been Mark Reilly. He's been Benjamin Geary. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Preview.